guys, welcome back. Recently, a ton of you have been asking me to talk more about being vegetarian, which I am really excited that you guys have so many questions about it because that is something I would absolutely love to share with you more on my channel. I've been getting a lot of comments and messages on Snapchat and Twitter especially, just asking about going vegetarian in general, cooking vegetarian food, and also how I make this lifestyle work for me in my circumstances, which I will talk about momentarily. So today I've decided to do kind of an introductory video. As you can tell from the title, I am going to be discussing some important things that I think you should know before you go vegetarian. I also do feel like a lot of these things apply to going vegan as well, if that's something you're considering. Obviously, being vegetarian first is a great stepping stone if that's your ultimate goal. But before we jump into the 5 things I think you should know, I'm also going to take this as an opportunity just to kind of talk about my experience with going vegetarian so far and also answer some of my most frequently asked questions. If you still have unanswered questions after I'm done this video, feel free to leave them down below and I can definitely do a dedicated Q&A on this topic. I actually asked you guys on social media to send me questions before I made this video so I could make it as informative as possible, but I know I'm not going to be able to cover everything. But yeah, this video is going to be pretty chill and chatty and casual. I just wanted to sit down and kind of have a conversation with you on this topic. It's probably quite long too, as I'm sure you've already gathered from the timestamp, but let's get into it. So a little bit of background on me. This spring I have officially been a vegetarian for 10 years, though as far as the spectrum goes, I am actually closer to being vegan or plant-based rather, since we're just talking the diet in specific and not the lifestyle as a whole, but I'm gonna say vegan for the sake of keeping things simple. I eat very little animal byproducts and I try to cook vegan about 95% of the time. I do eat some dairy, pretty much only cheese though, and mostly in social settings where I don't have full control over what I'm going to be eating, which brings me to my next point, and I think this is the reason why I get so many questions, because so many of you are in the same position. But I am the only vegetarian in my life. My boyfriend, my immediate family, my relatives, my boyfriend's family, no one in my life is vegetarian or vegan. So that's definitely something I'm really going to touch on in this video because so many of you guys have messaged me saying, I live with my boyfriend and he's not vegetarian and he's not open to it, or I live with my family and same kind of thing, and you don't really know how you can make this lifestyle work for me. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about that a lot. I also do get asked quite a bit why I am not vegan, and that is the main reason why I have never gone vegan or may never be 100% vegan. Some of you guys may think that's a really shitty reason to not be vegan, but believe me, it is something I have thought long and hard on over the years many times, and this is just what works for me best at the moment in my current situation. I really try and do everything I can to be conscious of what I'm eating and where the food I'm eating comes from and what it means, and make my decisions based off of that, and that's why I do cook vegan pretty much all the time at home now. I'm actually thinking of doing maybe eating vegan a certain number of days of the week, if that makes sense, because I kind of already do that subconsciously. But yeah, I just wanted to explain that because it's something I get asked about a ton. One thing that is really fantastic though is that as kind of a side effect of me being vegetarian, the people in my life definitely consume less meat and animal products as a result. I cook for my boyfriend a lot, and obviously I cook vegetarian or vegan food, so as a result he consumes far less meat, and same with the other people in my life, just kind of by way of accommodating me, so that is really great. So I also want to talk a little bit about how I actually went vegetarian. At the age of 12 years old, still living at home with my non-vegetarian family. My situation is definitely not the norm, and I know that, so just keep that in mind. But basically, one of my best friends in junior high was vegetarian, and we were hanging out one day. We were just sitting, playing on the computer or whatever, and my mom went to walk past the door, she was walking down the hallway. And as she walked past, I looked up at her and I was like, "Mom, I'm going to be vegetarian." And she was just okay, and kept walking, doing whatever she was doing, and that's pretty much it. Here we are 10 years later. Many years down the line, I would find out that my family did not think this was going to last. They thought it was going to be a month-long thing or whatever. They didn't think it was going to stick, essentially, but I mean, obviously it did, and they've always been unwaveringly supportive of me, even though they didn't think it was going to be a lasting thing. Now, I did cut out all meat and seafood from my diet all at once. I was never someone who loved meat. I was never oh my gosh, I can't live without bacon or anything like that. So cutting out meat was never that big of an issue for me. That's another question I get a lot, and unfortunately I don't have the best advice for that because it's not something I struggled with. I only ate meat because it was normal and I just never questioned questioned it, but once again, I never loved it and never craved it. I think the best advice I can personally give on that is to remind yourself that the reason you are choosing to pursue this lifestyle, whether that is ethical, environmental, for health reasons, just remind yourself that those far outweigh your desire to eat meat and that they are so much more important. But if anyone else has better advice on this, feel free to leave it in the comments down below. But yeah, I've never been like, screw it, I just really want to eat this steak or whatever, and like caved and eaten meat. I did eat turkey accidentally once about like a year into being vegetarian, but that is the only time I have eaten meat in this past decade, and I have no memory of what it tastes like, and I never miss it, honestly. In the beginning of my vegetarian journey, there was like a couple things I did miss, like Chinese food, and I also miss sushi and stuff like that, but I've never like craved it enough that I've just wanted to eat it. It was never like a big deal though, and I have completely gotten over missing those particular foods, and now that I look back, I'm like, there are so many other delicious alternatives I can eat instead. Why would I ever miss those things? But yeah, that was kind of like a brief history on my vegetarianism, but let's go ahead and jump into the 5 things I think everyone should know before they go vegetarian. So the first thing is that you do need some support from the people around you to be vegetarian successfully. Now, once again, this really only applies to those of you who live with your family still, or maybe with a significant other. If you live on your own or with roommates and you're in charge of buying like all of your own groceries, this really shouldn't be an issue. This shouldn't be something that holds you back at all. Do you know, eat however you want. But speaking as someone who has been living this way for a decade, it's really not that hard to be the only vegetarian in your family, as long as they are willing to be a little bit adaptable and supportive. I know it must absolutely suck for those of you who are in a position where your family or your significant other is just not willing to have it at all. I know some people who have like tried to go vegetarian or vegan and their family wasn't supportive of it, and they basically just ended up starving and going back to eating normally within like a week, which obviously is not sustainable. It's not healthy at all. Believe me, you do not want to go down that route. So of course I'm going to share some tips for how to kind of warm your family up to the idea of you being vegetarian. So the first one is do your research. Be knowledgeable on what you are talking about. Generally speaking, people are going to be a lot more receptive to things that are kind of out of the ordinary for them if you can have a level-headed conversation that is backed up by knowledge and facts. So once again, whatever your reason for wanting to go vegetarian is, do your research and be able to back up the points you are making. This will also better convey that this is something that is important to you and something you have actually put a lot of thought into if you can actually explain your reasoning behind it. As for eating, as a teenager, and even now, a lot of the times I kind of just live on sides. So like if your family is cooking chicken and vegetables and rice, you eat the vegetables and rice. If your family's having pasta with meat sauce, have a separate sauce with it and maybe like grill up some veggies to have with it. When it comes to like Thanksgiving and Christmas, I just eat the mashed potatoes, I eat the corn, I eat the veggies, and I just don't eat the meat. It's really not that hard. Another thing too that you can do if you're living with your family is offer to cook dinner one night a week. Be like, hey, every Tuesday I'm going to cook dinner. And I can guarantee your family will be very appreciative of it, especially if your parents are really busy. This is a really great way to show the people around you that you can live without meat and that vegetarian cooking can be really damn delicious as well. If the people in your life start to kind of warm up to it and be a little bit more receptive to, you can always offer to like show them articles with more information, or watch documentaries, or watch YouTube videos and stuff on the subject, just to kind of open up their minds to it a little bit more. Most people have a very out of sight, out of mind kind of mentality when it comes to what they're eating, and most people just straight up don't want to face the reality of where their food comes from. More often than not, if you talk to someone who eats meat about the meat industry, they're going to feel extremely guilty and be like, no, I don't want to see that, I don't want to talk about it. So if you can gradually get people warmed up to educating themselves more, that is a really great thing too, and who knows, someone else in your family might end up going vegetarian or vegan with you. But definitely approach this gradually. Don't just like bombard your family with videos of like animals being slaughtered or anything like that, because it's not going to be well received. Number 2 is that being vegetarian is not more expensive, and neither is being vegan for that matter. Such a common thing that I hear is, I would love to stop eating meat, but that's just too expensive, I just can't afford it. And this is not true at all. You can definitely make it expensive, but it can also be very affordable. It's like anything. You can live off of frozen chicken nuggets every night, or you can live off of steak. It's kind of what you make it, basically. My staple foods are like produce, like greens and veggies and fruits, tofu, like canned beans and chickpeas, rice, things like that. Like, they are not expensive foods by any means. I think a lot of people get this idea because a lot of the like fake meat alternatives out there are definitely pricier, and you may end up eating more of these in the beginning as you transition, but I personally think it's best to gravitate and opt towards a more whole foods kind of diet, and if you eat in this way, it is not going to cost you any more. I actually find it's a lot cheaper. Like, when I go grocery shopping with my mom or whatever and she's buying meat, I'm like, meat is freaking expensive. Like, we went to Costco together the other day and her grocery haul consisted mostly of meat because that's kind of what she goes to Costco for, and our grocery hauls were like the exact same price, but I feel like I ended up with way more food than she did with all of my produce and everything. Number 3 is that you need to be flexible. You will learn very quickly living this lifestyle that you can't really be picky. There will be times when you go out to eat at a restaurant and you look at the menu and there will be one vegetarian option and it's just like, okay, guess that's what I'm eating tonight. Especially when like your friends or other people are more in charge of picking the restaurant. And there will be other situations sometimes where there's essentially nothing you can eat, like at weddings and events. I've been at like events where a lunch is provided or whatever. There'll be like a platter of sandwiches and 2 of them will be vegetarian and someone else will swoop in and take them, and I'm just like, thanks, fam. I know this sounds like a really negative thing. It's really not that bad, especially over the years. This has gotten way better, and a lot of places do have more vegetarian and vegan options, but it is still something you will most likely run into from time to time, so you just need to kind of be prepared and be ready to go with the flow. Number 4 is that it's perfectly fine to take things slow and cut foods out of your diet gradually if that is what is going to work for you. Like I said, I cut out all meat and seafood just all at once. That's kind of just how I am. I'm a very like all or nothing kind of person, but I know that that is not what's going to work for everyone, and I think I speak for pretty much everyone else in this community when I say that I would rather see you cut meat out of your diet gradually and have it be more sustainable long term for you than to do it all at once and then go back to eating meat in 2 weeks. Every little bit counts and every little bit helps when you are starting to lead a meat-free lifestyle. Personally though, be honest with yourself if you're going to do this. I have so much more respect for people who like cut the foods out gradually and be like, okay, this month I'm going to start by not eating any red meat. Next month will be seafood. Next month will be chicken. I have way more respect for someone who does that than someone who says, okay, I'm going vegetarian, and then a month later you see them eating a burger, you know what I mean? Just be honest with yourself and do whatever you know is going to work for you personally. I think if being vegetarian or vegan is really important to you and something you really want to do, you will definitely be able to make it work. I believe in you guys. So to wrap up this video, number 5 is going to be some surprising foods that you can't eat as a vegetarian. A lot of people, myself included when I first started out, kind of thought, okay, this is black and white. I just cut out meat and fish and there we go, I'm a vegetarian. But it does go beyond that, so I'm going to quickly go through some of the most common and also surprising, at least surprising to me, foods that I discovered I couldn't eat as a vegetarian. So number 1 on this list is actually a Caesar salad, which is a really weird one, but traditional Caesar dressing contains anchovies. I definitely did not find this out until I had already been vegetarian for a few years, so I would order Caesar salad in restaurants and it'd just be like, make sure there's no chicken or bacon on it, and then when I found out the dressing isn't vegetarian either, I was like, well, what the hell? Kind of a tough one, honestly, because it is such a like staple salad and food in general, but yeah, Caesar salad, not vegetarian. There are a couple options out there for vegetarian and also vegan Caesar dressings. My favorite is from Bolthouse Farms. I believe it's just called their creamy Caesar dressing. It's really good. Number 2 is gravy. Now, if you know anything about how gravy is made, this isn't going to surprise you, but even in like instant gravy packets, they do typically contain chicken or beef fat. So gravy is another one that comes off the list. For me, when it comes to Christmas and Thanksgiving, I just bring my own gravy, BYOG. I just find a brand that I know doesn't have any kind of like animal fats or byproducts in it, and I make it and just bring it on my own so I can still have gravy with my mashed potatoes and everything. Yeah, if you're Canadian like me, that rules out a lot of fast food poutine, unfortunately, which is just heartbreaking. Number 3 on this list is certain types of cheese. This is a big one I've seen a lot of people talking about recently, like I think BuzzFeed and some other websites have had articles on it. I've been seeing it all over Facebook, but the biggest one is Parmesan cheese, because Parmesan and other harder cheeses contain something called rennet, which is basically from my understanding, an enzyme that is derived from the cow's stomach. I believe it's just used to kind of like solidify the cheese and actually make it cheese. But yeah, when you're buying cheeses, definitely try and look at the ingredients. I do find this is only with actual like really good quality Parmesan cheese. Like if you buy like Kraft shredded Parmesan cheese in a bag, it doesn't have rennet in it because it's not like really good quality. Number 4 is pesto, and this is kind of for the same reason. Most pesto contains Parmesan cheese, so you have to look out for this and probably avoid it at most restaurants. Number 5 is gelatin. I think thanks to the DIY community on YouTube now, pretty much all of us know that gelatin is derived from animal bones. So most vegetarians will choose not to eat anything with gelatin in it. So this includes marshmallows, gummy candies. A lot of cereals contain gelatin. Like there's the obvious Lucky Charms because it has marshmallows in it, but apparently like mini wheats and stuff also contains gelatin. A lot of cheesecakes contain gelatin. Definitely look into this one more because there are a lot of other foods that do contain gelatin as well. Those are just kind of like the most common. Number 6 is a lot of different Asian cuisine, simply because a lot of Asian cooking does involve fish sauce, which is like a fermented fish sauce. It's a big one with like Vietnamese and like Thai food and stuff like that. And finally on this list I have a lot of different types of soup as well, because a lot of soup will have some kind of like chicken or beef stock used as the base of it. I've heard some people say that Campbell's vegetable soup, if you look at the ingredients, like the first ingredient is like chicken or beef broth. I haven't looked at that personally, but I've seen some people talking about that recently, which is just kind of crazy. So in terms of eating soup at like fast food places or restaurants, they are usually a no-go unless you can actually read the ingredient list for yourself. That's actually where I'm going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed and found it helpful. Once again, in this video, I was just kind of like skimming the surface a little bit, so if you want me to do a more detailed and in-depth Q&A, leave your questions in the comments down below. I did screenshot most of you guys' questions from Snapchat and Twitter and everything, so I might just end up answering those questions in a video, but if you guys want to leave me more, it'll definitely help me out. Give this video a thumbs up if you did find it helpful. Don't forget to go follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. I am at SariReanna on all 3, and hit that subscribe button down below if you are new here. I would so appreciate it, but I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye guys.